Welcome back on another episode of Throwback Sunday with Dalton and Allie. Allie, how are you on this fine Sunday evening?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. A little tired. How are you, Dalton?
I'm doing fine myself. A little tired, like you said, but I think we'll manage. So today's episode is on the symbols and iconography of Christianity.
Ooh, so what exactly is Christian iconography?
Well, the college textbook for Humanities defines Christian iconography as the subject matter of a work, both literal, factual, and figurative, symbolic, in Christian art and literature.
Oh, interesting.
And with these symbols, there's about 11 different types of them. An article written by Macaulay Martinez wrote that there are 11 categories of Christian symbols. They are signs and writings, numbers, cosmic phenomena, colors, stones and metals, plants, animals, biblical figures and personifications, mythological figures, parts of the body and body effluvia, and other symbols, such as buildings like the church, objects, such as the lamp, clothes, such as a veil, food, for example, bread, and weapons like the sword, meant to represent military power.
Wow, I had no idea there were so many different categories of symbols.
I know, they were incredibly creative with these. So, to give y'all an example, a common type of written symbol would be such as the ichthyes, which would be in the shape of a simple fish. And basically what it was it was meant to represent gathering places for early Christians who were being persecuted by Rome, because at the time Christianity was not a official religion of the state. So it would provide them a guide, if you will, to know where to meet up. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like secret messages, right?
Exactly. The textbook further puts it that over the course of the first 200 years of Christianity, before freedom worship was legalized, Christians developed many symbols that served to identify them to one another and to mark the articles of their faith and places of gathering. So, in a sense, yeah, secret messages. And then, but a lot of these symbols were based off of association. So an article written in 2020 states that in the case of symbols, the only connection between the form and of the meaning of the signs is convention, which means an agreement made between the users of the sign. For instance, the facial expression of raising one's eyebrows as a sign pointing to the person's emotional state of surprise. So a lot of times they were association, but many times they had meaning, such as the Alpha and the Omega Greek letters referencing scripture where it says that Christ is the Alpha and the Omega in the beginning and the end.
That's very complex, so you kind of just have to know your scriptures so you can understand the meaning of the signs.
Exactly, and a lot of them harken back to other scripture, like the ichthyes is like the feeding of the 5,000, and that's also why bread is a commonly used thing. And lastly, I want to touch on later on, once these symbols have become very used and traditionalized, they'll become very standardized. An article written by Macaulay Martinez wrote that the Middle Ages was a period in which most of the iconographic types of Christian traditions and symbols were formed and solidified. So this would lead to many of these symbols dying out because, for one, they weren't as needed because Christians didn't need special hiding places or secret messages, because by the 11th and 12th centuries, Christianity was the predominant religion throughout Europe. However, many of these symbols still remained, such as the use of predominantly the cross, the ichthyes, the lion and the lamb, and a little bit the alpha and the omega. However, the ones that were still in use were preserved. An article written by Elena Kravenchko states that historically, Orthodox Christians have tended to appreciate iconography as a religious practice that teaches the traditional ways of producing a sacred object. That is not to say that Orthodox theology demands uncompromising submission to established iconographic forms and procedures. Rather, it maintains that material medium of icons can reflect the historical developments of Orthodox tradition. And while these are not exclusive to Orthodox tradition, many of these apply to Roman Catholic and Protestant forms of iconography. And a lot of the ones that were practiced in the medieval era, such as the cross, the ichthyes, and a little bit of the alpha and omega, are still in use to this day in Christian circles. So how about that?
Man, it's incredible that those symbols have lasted for thousands of years in the church and they're still prominent today.
I know, right? It's pretty incredible that even throughout those thousands of years, they have not changed much at all. And I think it can go to a testament to Christianity's longevity and preservation compared to the early 1st and 2nd centuries of when it was first practiced. So what'd you think?
I think Christian iconography is really cool. I mean, there's so many different types of symbols, from the written symbols like the alpha and omega to the objects and the animals like the bread and a lion and the lamb. And I also think it's super cool how you can even use them as sort of secret messages, like how the early church used the ichthys. Also, they've lasted so long over time, and once the meanings were established for certain symbols, they pretty much have stayed consistent for thousands of years.
I definitely have to agree. It definitely goes to as a testament to Christianity's creativity, longevity, and continuity of the meanings compared to those 1st and 2nd centuries. Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah, thanks for teaching us about Christian iconography, Dalton.
You're welcome. Anytime. Alrighty, that wraps it up for this episode of Throwback Sunday with Dalton and Allie. I hope you had a wonderful time, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See ya!